We're here for the Public Safety Realignment Meeting. Today is March 20th at 11 a.m. We will call the meeting to order. This will, let's see. What's here? Ariana, would you like to do roll call first, or should I go over the housekeeping items first?
I could do roll call and then you can go over housekeeping if you want. Raina Moore,
Here.
Raina Hurley, Tiffany Anaya,
Here.
Walanda Hughes.
Here.
3 members are present, quorum is established.
Thank you, Ariana. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. For those in the public on Zoom, please keep your participation on mute. For those on the phone, please use *6 to mute and unmute. For those in the room and on Zoom, we'll hear comments first from the board members on the items discussed today, and then from the public by raising your hand. So now we can go ahead and get started. Now that we've done roll call and introductions, we could go ahead and take any public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the committee that is not on the agenda for today. Rena or Willanda, do either of you have any comments on it for anything that didn't make it on today's agenda?
No, I have no comment at this time. I think I can think of.
Ariana, do you or Jill, do you all have any announcements or any comments on anything that's not on today's agenda?
No, and we have no updates from the ORJ.
No.
And do we have any comments from the public on anything that's not on today's subcommittee agenda? I'm not seeing any at this time. We can move on and consider approving the record of action from February 20th, 2025 Programs and Service Subcommittee meeting. Attached is last meeting's agenda. If you would like some time to review it.
A motion to accept the minutes.
Motion. So Gariana, we have a motion from Willanda and a second from Rena.
I have a motion from Walanda and a second from Raina Moore. All in favor of approving the record of action from February 20th, 2025 CAB Programs and Services Subcommittee meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Thank you, Gariana. So moving on to our second agenda item of the agenda. If we can please review the program and service work plan and our aligned 2025 priorities. As mentioned last meeting, we did discuss the visiting the process for the site visits and timeline coming up with the questions. Going over this. Also attached is the priorities that were aligned during our retreat back in January. So if you all haven't had time since the last time we met, if you have anything that you would like to add, I will also allow you all some time to go ahead and review these items.
I remember last time we were, discussing the, work plan items, and I forgot where we left off. Was it the, um, was it the ADA compliance?
Mhm.
ABOs? Not sure if we left off on that one or not.
I know that we discussed, like, if we wanted to include it in the site visits and not so much, just being thoughtful on how we were gonna align the questions, and I think, from the way I understood it would be more like how our providers kind of like adapt, or what services, or ways they are able to serve individuals, with any types of, all types of disabilities, not necessarily physical, but also like, mental, emotional, disabilities as well, or like how staff can adapt to get individuals to, through the intake process so that everyone is able to access the services. So we definitely can be thoughtful for that, or maybe, then, allow providers to think about how, we can broaden like the umbrella or serve individuals, whether they're already or may not be equipped, they haven't already crossed the bridge, like, while providing services.
Right, because when I think of like, intake or orientation, sometimes it's in a group setting and they might not. Well, intakes is done separately, but in orientation, they may need something like a one-on-one orientation.
I've got a lot of people with social anxiety disorder,
Yeah, yeah,
work I do too, so it's real, like,
yeah.
You, have any like ideas or any questions aligned around, this subject pros for the site visits, or?
Do you,
because how do you word that, like?
yeah, well, we can, first maybe ask, how do they, utilize that service, for emotional? Cause sometimes for me, I know the obvious is physical, if we see a wheelchair, if we see a cane, oh yeah, come in, sir, have a seat. Um, maybe we can ask, some questions. Do you need, I don't like to use the word disability, but maybe you need, maybe ask, do you need some services that are more private or?
So mental health, there's such a stigma too, like a lot of people don't,
Yeah, that's true. It is a stigma.
Maybe, I don't know like how you all currently practice, but maybe just having like more open-ended questions, or, if staff are trained on like picking up on social cues
Mhm.
or body language, or maybe if someone is not really comfortable or kind of connecting on standard process, maybe like having, whether it be one-on-one or someone not really having to fill out the paperwork, maybe it can just be providers entering the information into safe.
Right.
Just allowing individuals to feel comfortable, versus whether someone is not able to like read or write or see. If someone is kind of just like having a conversation and gathering information and entering in the safe. And this is just like, a quick example or
Right,
idea, but,
brainstorming.
maybe just like learning around providers and their process, and then maybe having like a follow-up question or, a suggestion of, well, I wouldn't, maybe not a suggestion, but just a question on like, how would we serve someone who may, have a disability and still be able to connect them to services the same way we would someone who have a disability.
Okay. Or ask, the provider, I mean, the programs, if they have, training that's equipped for, um, cultural diversity and, intellectual. Or to use disability, intellectual inclined people. I don't know how we can word it. I'll look it up. I'll ask Google chat somebody. But, definitely would like to see if they're trained in that area. Provide those services. Because,
Like trauma-informed
a lot of
approach, like-
people, I know I've seen people and even in my work experience. I'm sorry if you guys can't hear me. I think people in my work experience will say, oh, we're CARF approved, so we have to be approved by the ADA services. That does not mean that the employees are trained to, know that those special characteristics that you need and training that you need to carry that out. Because you put that up on CARF that you have it, are you utilizing it?
Yeah, because a lot of people are affected by trauma, especially people who are in the reentry community and everything like that, like. Trauma informed approach, like.
Mhm.
I know, like, if individuals are coming from like probation and we already have that summary and information from individuals, or even like if individuals are already in safe, also like gathering as much information and maybe looking more to update instead of like having individuals reshare their traumas and their experiences again. I know from my experience, some individuals can be a little hesitant because they don't want to be like counted out for services or jobs or training, thinking that it may hinder them in connecting to services or achieving their goals,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like, vocational training and employment. I know that individuals can be a little bit hesitant of like forthcoming, so if we can already be informed like prior to meeting with individuals, and I'm sure a lot of providers already are, but maybe we can be more interested in like that process just to make it like more streamlined and comfortable for individuals. In addition, I like what you said about like trauma-informed care for individuals who do have like traumatic experiences, whether it be PTSD or social anxieties, or even just feeling like, question after question, it can
Yeah, 'cause a
bring
lot of-
up.
Yeah, a lot of people that I've worked with in the community, like, even just doing the paperwork, like, it seems like a big thing, but how you're talking about safe and providers being able to share the information, like, I'm not really that familiar with safe, like, I've heard of it, but. So, but that's cool if you guys are able to connect that way. So that the community member doesn't have to reshare everything like that, because sometimes resharing too can be traumatic too. Hello, how you doing?
Hello, Rena.
Oh,
So we're just currently going over like the work plan of like what has and hasn't been completed from 2024, and then
Okay.
just kind of realigning or ensuring that we're in the page and haven't missed anything from the priorities we aligned during the work retreat back in January. And we were just discussing like kind of streamlining intake processes and how we might want to be thoughtful, and just kind of touching on this topic during site visits around like ADA accessibility to services, whether it be, like someone who has traumatic experiences, someone who may have like visual or audio or like physical disability, someone who may not be able to complete a application or orientation, like how we can still connect them to services and not let it hinder someone achieving their goals and just acclimating that for the community. So I was just hearing some great points that Walanda and Rena brought up. I'm not sure if you had any questions proposed, but once you get settled in, feel free to jump on in. Okay, we keep on rolling. So after reviewing the first item on last year's work plan, I believe that a few of these things were completed as far as advocacy and supportive CAB policy platform. I know that we all did the implicit bias training this year, for example, expanding houses. Maybe we can plan or like invite the reentry court team back and just see how that's going since that program's launched. Like, how many justice impact individuals are like able to streamline getting into like county shelter beds. Because I know that that was addressed during last year's CAB. In addition to expanding like restorative justice, I know there was like focus groups around restorative justice and funding that was expanded, like in the school districts in Antioch. So that was completed. But I'm glad that you brought 80 up because I'm not sure if that was touched on or wasn't last year. And we can incorporate that in our site visits since we will be dispersing like assignments for us all to go out and visit sites once we have our questions.
I also, like to, point out that, that would be good for Core to come and give us an update on how it's working out there. I know me personally, in my line of work, we've got 2 transportation in place for 2 clients to get transported through Core from one county to where their SLE is, and then I'm going into jail to do an intake, so, cause Core only provides that one ride, so, right now, so I wanna see, I wanted it at first to be like, can you stop my loud family? And you go over here, and they're like, no. So, that was nice to see that the core team for transportation is already in place, and drums are working with them already.
Are we still gonna be trying to do presentations from people who don't get AB 109 funding? Because there's a lot of people that have been referring to transitional housing, right? Those programs don't necessarily get AB 109 funding. Like, I remember in the past, we were doing presentations from CBOs, so I don't know, just to bring up the idea of maybe, funding should go other places or support other programs and stuff. I've had a lot of success housing people through transitional housing, like they accept people in reentry, they accept people like, families,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
So I know I'm only knowledgeable. Oh,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Hey y'all, hey. I just wanted to add some information to what you were asking. I think it's a great idea. In the past, programs and services and policy and budget, they kind of you guys go hand in hand and you kind of collaborate. So I'm trying to play both parts by feeding information between the two. You guys are able to kind of join meetings and listen in, but I'm bringing that up is they're doing the same thing. So we don't want to kind of duplicate the work. Sometimes we will try to bring individuals back to full cab versus to individual subcommittees. So that may be an item to bring at our next meeting to say, hey, I know because policy and budget wants people to come in and do presentations. Randy, you are actually correct. We were also looking at our current funded CBOs, and we also want to look at programs that are touching our population, right? Because we want to bridge that gap. We want to eliminate our reentry population from being siloed. So I think that is still an amazing idea, and that's kind of some of the things that we pushed towards when we did the AB 109 one-time funding, was trying to loop those programs in. So I think that is something that programs and services should also look at because that's your part of it, right? And then policy and budget, they just want that information because it helps with the recommendation. So we need to, those are the kind of topics that as you're making those decisions, bring those up at the meeting to share, to get feedback so that we can understand what other committees are doing so that we're not duplicating. So I know that was a lot that I threw up out there, but I wanted to just point out that that is an idea that we are uplifting to do, and programs to serve policy, Lord have mercy, policy and budget is doing the same thing. So definitely go back and check out their video. And if you don't mind, I would definitely say bring that up as an item to the next full board meeting so that we can have that robust discussion around who are we going to have. And again, not to repeat myself, I think listening to what you all are saying and what I heard from policy and budget, I think it's a good idea that we bring these presentations to the full board. That way both committees can see it. And then if you need to have them come for maybe something more focused on your aspect of it, then we can invite them for that. How does that sound?
Thank you.
thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
I don't know if this is like already existing, and I know that Willanda, Rena, you all both spoke to it. But I know I'm only knowledgeable of like, of course, the AB 109 funded, like Define Housing and like Miss Shirley's. And then there's some others like local to us in Richmond that I'm also familiar of. Sure, like we had mine in fighting, or even the ones you're knowledgeable of, but I think it would be helpful if we had a list of like AB 109 funded SLEs and then others who are just maybe not AB 109 funded, and then it would be better to identify like who exactly we wanted to invite and who's also accepting, that way individuals can be connected who aren't funded, and then also who are funded that we may want to invite and hear from since they're already receiving funding. Nicole, I see your hand.
Yeah, can you repeat that? You said AB 109 funded SLEs?
Yes, because we were just discussing like, or Rena had suggested inviting housing providers or like SLEs that were not AB 109 funded and providing the services that she often connects to. And I was just thinking that it would be helpful to know like who actually is AB 109 funded, or if there's a list of housing providers who are doing the same thing and not receiving the funding that I just may not be aware of, or we're not
So
aware of,
let me
because I'm not sure, like, I'm
so let me,
sorry.
let me clarify that for you. There is no such thing as an AB 109 funded SLE. So when it comes to providers that are funded by AB 109, those are our housing providers such as LAOS. Individuals like LAOS, Sheltering, and/or Hope Solutions, they then go out and they find SLEs that they sign MOU or contracts with. So I have a list of SLEs that I'm aware of. So SLEs are not just tied to AB 109. So there is a bunch of they're not providers. And I'm hoping that one day we can get away from saying SLEs because they are not sober living environments. They are transitional housing. They are halfway houses. They are not sober living. So that name got thrown out there some kind of way. Now what we're asking, that's a very big ask. We're asking to, and I'm not saying it's not possible because I have a list because I was a previous housing provider and Walanda probably have a list to kind of start off with. But we will need to then research what are the transitional houses within Contra Costa County. The reason why I say that's a big ask because they're not just focused on AB 109. So we have housing that's tied to COH, the Council of Homeless. We have BECS, we have Laos, we have Hope Solutions, and so on. So this list is big, and I know that because you guys know that housing, I sleep, eat, breathe it. So if you all want a list, I have a list that you can start off with, Tiff, I can send you. And then that way, as a committee, if you guys individually know some that I don't have, you can add it to that. So we do have a great starting point. However, just keep in mind when they come to this meeting, they're not solely AB 109, right? And then Jill may have an extra, I see her hand, but they're just transitional housing that provide housing for those that are in reentry. So they may touch on parole, they may touch on probation, they may touch a wide range of funding through BSCC. So it'd be nice to hear their services, but they don't solely just focus on AB1. Would that make sense?
I think what I was referring to was like AB 109 funded beds, and I know SLE probably isn't the right term because we are like the housing first model, so like transitional living environments. However, there's, beds like Miss Shirley's or Divine Housing that are like contracted through AB 109. So I was just like referring to those versus there's other like Glow's independent living
That
and
one.
other housing providers who, I'm not sure
Right, but those
what
are not
beds go
contracted
to
through.
who.
But those are not
But that's
contracted through
what
AB 109. Miss Shirley's and Karina are subcontracted through Health Right 360, who is funded through AB 109. Do you see the linkage? So they're not directly getting funding from RJ. So that's
right, but aren't there under the network?
right. So I mean, what I'm saying is when you break out your SLEs, if I'm clarifying in the right way. So, but we have to watch our terminology. These are not people that are funded through AB 109. They are subcontracted through our providers. So we have to make sure that we clarify what we're asking for so that we get the proper audience. Does that make sense? So you're right. We just got to verbalize it in the proper manner.
I think I was just trying to identify like who do we want to invite?
Okay.
Is it those ones who are subcontractors, or is it just other ones who exist in the community? Because it is so broad, I'm not sure like who the board is like suggesting that we come and present here. And that's why I was asking if we could provide a list, because I am only familiar with subcontractors or maybe
Right.
one or two other providers in the community.
I think that's and I still
I
see
know
your hand,
you're
Karina. I'm
very
sorry.
knowledgeable, Yolanda's knowledgeable, Rena had made the suggestion, so that way I could be clear.
No, that's a very good question you're asking. We actually never went to that step within CAP to invite transitional houses to the board to do a presentation. So this will be something new. And that was the reason for me giving the feedback because I think it's an amazing idea that you both brought up. We've just never, that wasn't one of our items. So if that is something that you all want to do, the information I'm giving is more of just feedback on how to be able to do that because it'll get muddy for you because there are so many different houses that are out there that do provide beds to our population that are either subcontracting or just have a house available that they want to place. So, and Walanda can share that as well. It can get really mucky. So I think that it's an amazing idea. We just have to kind of break down and get that proper audience that you're looking for to invite them, because I think it'd be amazing for you to hear, right, what these people are doing, because they've never been, what's the word for it? They've never been noticed. They've never been asked to come to a meeting and say, yeah, recognize. So I actually think that you all have some amazing ideas. I just wanted to help you not go down a rabbit hole and really define exactly who you want so we can have it. And I'll be quiet. I'll let Jill speak. So it was more just feedback on how to get what you want at that table and the right people at the table. I give it to you now, Jill.
I was just going to add, so for SLEs, I think the most direct place to find out a list is AOD, alcohol and other drugs. Fatima Matalsol would be the one who connects people to SLEs. There's, as you all know, a variety of types of housing. So we have behavioral health housing. We have, the housing connections through H3. There's so many different housing resources depending on what somebody needs. And then, of course, we add the layer of CalAIM and their housing resources that are coming on board. So, narrowing down what it is that you're looking for. If you're just looking for specific to the reentry population, you could talk to each one of those groups to find out how they connect individuals who are incarcerated or leaving incarceration to housing resources.
Thank you, Jill.
You wanna first start off with proposed list and then see what we have on there? What she has on it.
Nicole, is your hand up or is that from earlier?
Oh, I did, but I think I lost my whole. I forgot I had a hand. Go ahead.
Okay. Since you brought up the suggestion, I think, Rena, did you have someone specific in mind or were you
Yeah.
thinking of?
Well, the person you brought up, low independent living. Yeah, Tiffany, yeah, I've had a lot of success getting people housed to her, like a lot of success. I'm even not one of her places, to be honest, like, so. Yeah, I thought she'd be somebody good, like, I just connected people to other resources too, like, there have been some people who who have had issues with substance abuse or mental health issues, like they connect them with, she has, connected them with other resources too, to help, get them safe.
Okay.
That's just a suggestion.
No, I appreciate you bringing up this suggestion and, I'm also familiar with Tiffany and housing and,
And I'm familiar really good with Tiffany.
so I do like the idea. I think I was just asking to know if you had someone specific in mind or if there was list. It does seem like a bigger project that really wasn't a priority. And if it's not a heavy lift, it would be great to have the list, whether it be just general
There's other
safe
places too.
transitional homes versus SLEs. I know that we could potentially reach out to Fatima and then, maybe Wilanda, if we want to lean on you for the list you have in Nicole's list, where we could potentially have something in the shared drive if that's something that we actually want to do. And maybe this is something that I don't know like who policy and budget had in mind to like doing presentation, but we could even bring it up to the general body if it is something we want to do or not. But I know that right now we are just revisiting the 2024 work plan of what didn't get accomplished. That way we can bring it forward along with the other priorities for 2025. However, I have noted down just this item. Potential rabbit holes we could go down when we talk about it. But if you all think that maybe we want to hear from Glow Independent Living, maybe we can discuss this at the general body because I'm not sure if they wanted specifically like core the reentry team, what I had brought up early, or if there was a specific transitional home that they wanted to invite. Maybe we can have that discussion and see if we wanted to do it at the general body or here in this committee in this space. Nicole, is your hand up now?
Yeah, and I was just
Okay.
gonna add, when you guys do decide to go down there, this is a recommendation. Y'all can totally toss it out the window if you like. Kind of like what Jill said, behavioral health, and then probably tapping into our providers that we know either are funded through AB 109 and or probation, such as Laos and or Hope Solutions, our backs, and asking them like, who are the SLEs that we want to bring to the table? Because we do have to be, and I say tread lightly in a polite way, meaning that we want to bring those individuals coming to the plate that we know our providers are working with. I think Lowe's is a great one as well, but I know that our providers also have been, they do a lot of placement. So it's ensuring that the folks that we are bringing to the table are ones that we are all aware of. And Fatima is a great one to get a list again as well, because hers is around the behavioral health aspect, if it's AOD and or mental health. So start small and then big, right? Expand. But that, is reaching out to, because we don't know individuals, right? We may know we placed them, but our providers are the ones that are working with these houses. So getting their feedback on who they placement with will be later on down the line if y'all want. But that, and I'll send you. Matter of fact, when I put on mute, I will send you my SLE list. And then you can compare that with Walanda. But that will be my recommendation. Like Jill said, start off with the top people, because they'll give you the houses that they work with.
Thank you, Nicole. I definitely have that noted down. I believe that we could come up with a good list, and then maybe we'll be able to discuss it with policy and budget and the rest of the body of like who they were thinking to provide this. I just see here, like, after revisiting like the expanding for housing, that's why I had maybe suggested like reentering core, and that's exciting to hear, like
I think that
success
is
or
too.
some progress and
Would that be
sure
under
we've had.
the first bullet? I didn't mean to cut you off. Would that be under the first bullet?
Yeah, the first
Okay.
column,
Okay.
expanding housing and resources.
Want quarter time? Or give us an update?
I was thinking, but we can first discuss it at the general body with
Okay.
policy and budget and see like what they had intended and see if we are aligned. If so, that way we can have it a general body versus the next subcommittee. So by next subcommittee, we'll know which direction to go after we've all kind of convened at the general body meeting.
Oh, yeah, I think that would be
So
good.
I have that noted, and then I also have Lowe's independent living, if we did want to hear, like, I know that or the list, we can just kind of revisit that after we speak with policy and budget and see if we want to do rentry core, if we actually want to hear providers, and then but that was just covering on one of the last bullets on the first column of the ADA. That's kind of how we had
Oh, okay.
come down
Second.
here.
Okay.
But we can go out and do the site visit, we do need to come up with questions, so I think on how providers are being inclusive and getting individuals enrolled into services and supporting individuals achieve their goals who may need some accommodations, no matter what that may look like. In addition to, I know from last time we met until we came now, I had kind of put some thought into it, and I was just thinking, like, I would like to know how partners are like collaborating with one another. Like how they're communicating, or since we're all like funded to provide a specific service, like, who we're referring out to for other things when we identify a gap or a need for the community members that we're working with. So I know that I personally have questions around like collaboration and communication when we go into these site visits. I don't know if any of you had time or have any curiosities before we do get assigned and break down the list of site visits in addition, like, to the ADA questions. Do you all have any other like curiosities or high priority questions that you would like to align for the questions? No.
Maybe how is everyone getting their referrals? I don't know how
We
everyone.
get ours through SAFE.
So all the referrals just come through safe.
They'll be in through SAFE, yeah.
For probation or?
Probation.
Yeah, just, okay,
Probation.
so safe for probation. I agree with you, Tiffany, the collaboration, how are we sending referrals? So we gotta know exactly what CBO is doing what and what they refer out, I think would be a great question to cover the collaboration and the referral. process.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, for example, maybe someone directly comes into Lao, the network, and, you're creating the contact in safe because they haven't been intertwined or connected with any other provider. and you're able to like take care of the housing piece. However, if you identify other needs, and there's like other providers, like maybe who are you referring, how are you referring, how are you communicating? For example, like the center and like transportation or maybe some other services that you may refer to it, and that's just kind of like one example because you and I are able to speak to our collaboration. However, I'm just curious like how other partners collaborate or, communicate. That way we are getting our community members or partners are getting them through all of the programs and services, just to push them that much further in their journey and keep them successful, alleviating any hardships. Instead of kind of just like, holding on to them, I think it's best to make as many referrals as possible. That way individuals can receive as many resources, benefits, to just push them along and to strengthen that like support system, or they're able to leverage as many resources and at least be knowledgeable of resources that are available to them. So I was just kind of like, very curious around just like collaboration and just the like methods of communication. How are we referring or communicating with our partners?
And see, I'm that warm handout person. I'm always going with them. The while I was at Loud every week, huh?
You were with
Almost had a-
JD.
I almost had a desk.
Come back and see us. We'll get you a desk.
Yeah.
But Tiffany, I'm glad you brought up that point because I know, me personally had a personal situation, referring someone to reentry, and this is just an example on, how we talk about the collaboration and the partnership, but to use this as an example, I didn't know right offhand that, Reentry for Success provided transportation, and so when we were, I think you remember this person we were working with, I think last week, and he said that, hey, I'm here at Reentry for Success and they're gonna transport me. I'm like, oh, they are? And at that situation, I didn't know that you provided transportation. So then I had to reach out. I think I spoke to, not Bree, but, begins with an A, Alyssa. I spoke to her and then she gave me, the instruction on what I needed to do. And I needed to send a referral by email
Mhm.
where he was going and what for. And so then that worked out. So I didn't know about that service, and it just goes to show what we're talking about. I didn't know that service existed,
And that's what I mean, like even though like, just one partner, since you experienced that, or even like myself, like we may not, so just to like streamline or just strengthen and like reiterate a process of collaboration and communication. May potentially breaking down like any silos to best support the community members that are going through the services and receiving services through the network, whether it be like West or Central and East. That's kind of what I was like curious around, like, how can we push individuals through like more resources and programs, whether what programs are services are provided, or maybe incentives or support groups that we may not be knowledgeable of, that could be better shared throughout the community or even streamlined. If we receive someone at the center referring out, or maybe if someone is at mentoring or employment for Rubicon, like how can we co-enroll them in various programs? That way we can alleviate hardships and just best support them in achieving their goals and removing any barriers that they may be experiencing, versus just holding on to them until they complete 9 weeks of alpha, when we can, co-enroll them to various programs, maybe get them thinking about the fellowship program upon completion, connected, their probation, referred to LAO, mentoring, hooked up with MZP, just various, those are examples versus
Right.
Holding on to them for 9 weeks, like through Alpha at the center, where maybe they could also be benefiting from multiple programs and resources. So that's why I was just kind of thinking, like, how can we best get so many, because when members, so many will not just say, oh, I didn't know that this was here, the center. No, we don't know, like, maybe they don't knowledge of various other programs.
and maybe I should myself, come to the reentry for Success Center during business hours and, stay for a couple hours, that way I will get to know it a lot better,
Yeah.
So I was making my way. I know when I first came on, it kind of paused and now it's busy, but never too busy to at least stop by and say, hey, how you doing? Or what service? Because again, I think it was close to, in that situation with the client or participant and Alyssa, it was kind of close to after hours. And then, I think at one point in time, I talked to Tiffany and she was like, no, we're open on Saturdays too, and we're this, we're that. So just about that collaboration more of and taking the time to do it, I think will be helpful.
Yeah, because we really do share the same.
Okay.
Yeah, because was it last Monday, Monday before last, I think, one of the participants said she was going to a women's group at reentry.
Uh-huh.
I said, I've been saying I was gonna be there, so I
Uh-huh.
attended it.
Good,
I-
all right.
I really enjoyed it. I had to leave early because I
Uh-huh.
get to work at
Uh-huh.
this county, you know.
Right, right.
I really enjoyed the group. It was just three, so it was four of us total,
Right,
and it was good for me.
right, right, right. We get to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, so that was good, and I had been sick, but I had totally forgot.
Uh-huh.
And those groups are really needed.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask for one of the questions for the site visits is if, they provide any gender specific services, like for women, girls, or non-binary
Mm.
folks, right? Because, there's not enough services like that. Most of the reentry services are catered towards men, right? Like a lot of times, a lot of women that I've, encountered don't even know about the different, courses out there. Like, for example, for myself, right, I was on probation for 5 years. Never once did my probation officer mention that there were like programs like Rubicon or anything like that, like, where, female population reentries, yeah, highly underserved, like we need more resources and more programs like for. So if we could ask a question towards that, just to find out what services they do offer, if they do. In fact, that'd be just something good for myself to know and good,
Yeah.
for us too, because maybe we can.
I
advocate
think
more
for
than-
me is I just have to go over there. Because I know I utilize it so much and then I saw some duplicated services that we both provide, like the DMV, the DMV waiver form. Yeah, so we offer that too, and I noticed Reentry for Success offers that as well. So that's probably why you don't see a lot of entries in safe for that. So getting to know which ones are, what do you call it, similar services or the same services.
You guys give meals every day?
With groups and programs.
Okay, groups and
Mhm.
programs, okay. Oh, that was
Uh,
just great.
And then also upon release, well, like welcome home hot meals.
Oh,
However, Gariana, I think we have a lot of great ideas around, like the questions. Would it be possible to like upload maybe a Word document to the shared, or are we able, I'm sorry, this is a let me reverse that. Are we able to upload into the share drive, or are you able to upload in the share drive and then we edit?
I
with
think,
access.
and yeah, and Raina Moore, because Raina Moore reached out to me about this, and I think I put a document in there for you guys to draft list of questions.
Okay.
Raina Moore, were you able to access it?
Yeah, I had problems, yeah, I was at the end, so the questions that I thought of, like, I haven't seen that, but thank you for giving me access and everything, like.
Yeah, I can double check that each one of you have access to that questions doc, and then you can just draft your questions all together simultaneously in that document. But I'll
Are
double check
they-
that you have access.
was it under programming services?
I probably just missed it. Is it under this subcommittee folder?
I believe so. Hold, let me look into it.
The Word
But
doc.
it
like-
should, let me look it up. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're still reorganizing the Google Drive, but there is a folder for the CAP programs and services. And I could share my screen and walk you guys through it if that would be helpful, or do you guys? Oh, okay.
Can you do that real quick? I'm in there now as well. Or do the rest of the people mind? I didn't even ask.
No,
It's
please go
great.
ahead. No.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me go all the way back so I can start from the beginning. Okay. Can we all see the Google Drive?
Yes.
So if you go to the subcommittee folder at the top,
Okay.
and then the
Alright.
next one would say subcommittee work plans. Can we all see this?
Go back. Hold on.
Yes.
So I just started with like the AB 109 cab, and then it takes us to this list of folders, and then I go to the top one that says subcommittee, or I find the one that says subcommittee folders and then find programs and services. And then there's this like programs and services grid, programs and services survey, AB 109 provider challenges, and then AB 109 site visits. And in this folder, it's a site visit questions document, and then it's also a folder for you guys to start establishing your timeline for when you guys are going to do these site visits.
Okay.
We're doing them in August though, right? From what I saw.
Thank you.
So if we can all please align the questions that we have by our April Program of Service Committee, I will go ahead and add some questions around the 5 bullet points, and you all can like feel free to adjust them or add. And then we can take a look at them and review and kind of revise them, adjust them, get rid of any that may be like redundant or add something that we feel like missing. That way we can potentially make assignments for the site visits and get started on those. That way we're not feeling like pressured as far as crunch time. Once we have come up with the questions, I know that like we need to come up with the process for the visit, so that way it's kind of we're all utilizing like the same process and ensuring it's comfortable. Maybe we could even like introduce ourselves and like share the questions and identify like a good time for the providers. That way it doesn't feel so like uncomfortable or just kind of like so inquisitive that we'll have time to know like why we want to come and like the purpose of the visit and what we might want to be discussing during the visit.
Is there an email? Do you or Raina ever remember if there was an email, that you had that you sent out to the providers before you visit, like?
Oh, yeah, there is.
There is, would it be on the share drive as well?
Probably.
Or would you like us to come up with our own again?
I think I think there was one, share the one that I used
Okay,
last time.
that would be great if it's all right with.
Yeah, because Nicole did gave us one.
A template to reach out to the providers prior to.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we want to like take a look at that and revamp it, and then once we have our drafted questions, was there also, I believe, like a script for the site visit?
We haven't had one yet, but I definitely say if that makes you, we can create whatever makes the process easier for you all. So I think that would be great if you ladies want to create a script. I'm more than happy to step in and help wherever you would like, but we don't currently have one right now.
Okay.
Just
Do
let
you
me
all
know
feel
when to
like-
step in. All right, to help in.
Fit. No, I'm joking.
You're so funny, Yolanda.
No, but Raina,
It was kind of informal, like when we used to do ours, like, I mean, it was just kind of like, getting to know the provider,
Yeah.
like trying to make it like a, I don't know, investigation or interrogation, but.
Audit.
Yeah, basically, right.
I had enough of
Comfortable, yeah.
Okay.
Make it comfortable, we're all on the same team, right? We're all trying to. help you into conversation, so.
No, but if you remember it and you still had it, personally, if you could.
I think it's
share it.
probably the one from Nicole, like.
She said she didn't have.
Have a
ask
what?
her for the Email, like. Yeah, the
For
provider.
a reference to the providers.
Yeah, to send
Oh,
some, ask us,
I had just typed up one myself. I haven't like formally put one in place for the
I
committee.
think, of course you did. I think Latanya had created one.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Okay.
we'll let us,
I'll look.
we'll take it on and we'll come up with one. How about that?
I
I
mean,
can
you
share
can,
the one.
and also you can also go back to if well, that'll be an idea if you have one that Latanya did share that. But if you go back and look at, always use some of the tools we already have. Like so, what we have for the ambassadors, we may not be talking about the ambassador meeting, but we have like a little email script. So it's just changing the verbiage in that a little bit. But a script won't be that difficult to put together. It's just more of what our ask is, you know, to who we're sending the email to, and then the ask, and then make sure that everyone's using the same one. So make it something simple so it doesn't confuse them in email.
And I would just like to ask, when you are thinking of what your ask is, also think of what your why is. Like, why are we doing these? Because then that makes it easier for them to like, oh, they're doing this to not because we're being audited or being like monitored or watched, but they're here to like as a collaboration, as a thought partner for how we can better support you so you can better support the reentry population.
Awesome point.
Thanks.
So we can review like the template that was already utilized, or if not, we can upload it that way. Everyone feels like equipped and supported to reach out to like establish or set up a day and time for the site visits. And next meeting, while we're going through the questions, we can like all kind of, you know, brainstorm or discuss like what is our why. I think earlier today we discussed, you know, really streamlining services and alleviating any hardships on our community members, reacclimating back as a community member, and just making all of our providers like more visible, strengthening the communication and collaboration to what's already existing. That way, you know, we can get our community members like through all the doors of the providers they are already versus maybe just two or just one. And not only will they be knowledgeable of what's available to them, they'll also be equipped with resources and support while, you know, they're removing barriers and achieving goals that they have aligned for themselves.
Okay, the next meeting, sometimes I gotta have something specific to do, so I feel like I'm partaking. So if, I'll come up with the template or not the script, but the welcome or invite to the other partners in the area. Or if anybody else wants to come, with that welcoming email, and then we just come to the table with it.
Well, it sounds like there may be one that's already existing from last year.
So I could not, I'll take a look at the ambassador one she was talking about and tweak it a little bit,
Mhm.
if you'd like me to do that.
Cause I could forward the one that I have that Latanya made to Gariana, right? Cause I can't send it to them because yeah.
Maybe you can forward that to Gariana and then
Forward it to
upload in the
us.
drive,
Yes.
and we can like
Okay.
tailor it from there.
Okay.
In addition, if we can please focus on
The
the
question.
questions, because there's already like the document uploaded in the drive. That way we can revise them or remove like any redundant question or add anything while we reiterate our why and go into assignments for the month of April subcommittee.
The five topics that you had, I didn't get those. Can I see your agenda meeting to get those so I can stay on target?
Of course.
Questions?
Mhm.
Okay, great. In respect to time.
And also just speaking of the shared drive and just respective time while like we are on the 20th, just bringing up a reminder from the general body. I know that we established like a deadline for the end of this month for the program and service grid. So if you all haven't already, if you can please take the time to add any like providers, the county or providers that are not funded at 849 currently on the grid. That way we are ready to share. And when we have our meeting, there'll be one more meeting before the mini cap summit with the other counties. That way we can like stick to our end of the agreement. So I just wanted to remind you all while I can in this space. Also, while we're in there for the questions, if you can please take a look at the programs and service grid and make any additions because it will be shared as is at the end of this month.
That's the time.
And moving along for last year's. I know that we're about to go over the in custody survey and discuss the site visits. For the priorities, I know that we're currently developing our process. Following up on programs response to disabilities that we're also drafting in our questions and updating the service grid. So we're pretty much on point for our 2025 priorities and implementing into our work plan. I'm not sure if y'all had time to go over the in custody surveys. And before we do move on into the in custody survey, do any of you or anyone on Zoom have anything that you would like to comment or add to the 2024 work plan or priorities for 2025 that are aligned in January? Sorry, I didn't mean to go long without acknowledging you all. No? Okay. Okay, so I don't hear any comments or additions to item number 4, Garyana. So moving along to item number 5. Excuse me, number 6. Discussing the in custody survey report and findings.
Remember that we talked about the person who did these surveys? If we got any feedback from when they were taken, were they available all the time? Do you remember that person we had discussed who gave out the surveys?
Thank you for bringing that up, Yolanda. I know that we discussed like drafting questions for Jody, the Director of Programs and Services for Detention. I hope I got her title right. Donna, please correct me if I messed that up. I know that we had never like gotten to actually drafting the questions. That way we could be more informed before just putting out another survey. I know I had kind of like just questions. I was like really just curious, like on the response. Of course, there is a much smaller population of individuals that do identify as female in custody, and it seemed from my interpretation, like there was not as many women who completed the survey as men, and then also just around the findings of just around like the needs of like what was described in need, or like what individuals felt was like accessible and what wasn't. I know like some of those things are really interesting to me. And then there was just questions of like whether it was like available both on paper and on the tablet, and like, you know, like to who and where. Was it like in the pods or dorms, what have you? Or was it available in the schools? You know, like I know we had kind of discussed that the last time we had went over these questions. So that way we could just have a conversation with Jody and like not make any assumptions or be more informed. That way, if we have ideas how we could be more innovative or just capture more responsive. I know I had even ideas like, is there maybe even like any incentive, or how else can we gather more data when like facilitating and dispersing and collecting these surveys?
We've had a low response from women, like since there's so much time in the cell and stuff like that, I'd be told like one of the deputies could like walk around and ask the women like if they had to do the survey. Like I don't know how they were connected to the survey, but it'd be great if we got more responses from the like, even though last time we did the survey we got more, the first time we only got 1, so it's not that much more to do about the second time, but great to get more input from the female population.
Can I ask a question? Did you, and I haven't looked at this yet, did you figure out the percentage of the population that responded? Because there's fewer women incarcerated than men. So it percentage-wise is
true.
it still smaller percentage of women that responded than men?
Yeah, based on the ratio of, women who were housed and stuff like that, like, the percentage was, I guess, okay, I don't remember what was exactly, but I mean, in my opinion, it would still be great to improve it, like. What do you have, like, at least half, like, or something, I don't know.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Rena.
Okay.
I personally do not know like how many women were housed when the survey was facilitated. So I just know like when I see 12 and then I think about like how many beds might be available in like the women's building. I want to say that's like less than half.
Definitely.
So on, so I could ask her, and then only one for Martinez where I would naturally like anticipate or imagine less women being housed. That's a great
The only
point, or like,
women in Martinez are in the mental health unit, correct?
I'm thinking, or like maybe under medical treatment.
Yeah.
Just looking for it, that was mental health.
I thought,
Mental health,
Great.
oh, the mental health ward.
yeah, I thought.
And I think like this would be like the type of questions that would be good that maybe we could reach out to, I think Jody. That way we could actually know, like, is this, maybe if there was only 18 women in West County when this was facilitated, then actually maybe that would be, like a good response, considered a high response, percentage. So maybe that's like one of the questions, or, like an email that we could reach out to Jody. Or
I'm sorry, Jill, like, what was your question again, Ms. Roy?
Yeah, I'm just wondering percentage wise. So if you figure out the percentage of females that are in custody and the percentage, and how many males are in custody, figure out the respondents, what the percentage is of the respondents based on male, female, because female population is smaller.
Correct.
So the concern would be if you've got, 75% of the population is responding on the male survey, but only 25% on the female survey, then you've got an issue of not reaching females. But if you're equal percentages of respondents on both sides, then it's just a matter of that's the number you have responding.
It's always good to like,
Got
kind
it.
of increase it for
Thank you.
each year, right? For this year.
I feel like this is an item that has been like tabled for a few months, like from last calendar year into this year. So maybe we can like prioritize drafting questions that we actually would want to ask Jody. And I think from like the conversations we had, it sounds like it's more of like logistical questions versus like demographics and actual data that's being collected during the surveys. If you all feel differently, please feel free to chime in. Maybe it would also be helpful to begin like a draft of questions for Jody. That way we can kind of finalize them and share them with her before we invite her to a meeting. That way we can discuss like how we might want to think about a survey this year in custody and for who, and how we can improve and also like expand, like how we're reaching. And that way we're not having so many questions around the logistics and can just focus on like what information we actually want to gather from individuals who are currently in custody and potentially preparing to return to the community.
It sounds like, also Jody can be a, very busy person. Those questions, I wasn't sure if we can align with what Jill suggested and then maybe email Jody, or if you just want her to come.
Yeah, I think we could definitely align the questions because I was thinking it would be best to share them with her before inviting her to the
Oh, yeah.
space. And if she feels like it's something that she can just send over an email, or
Yeah.
if she does choose to
Come
send
and
over.
see us.
I know last year she did say that she was open to coming to a meeting, and I want to respect everyone's time. So if we have questions that we can just draft and send over, I think it would be great to, if it can get done in email, why?
No, but if she just wants to come and see us, she said she did, maybe we can't just leave that open. If she wants to come in.
I know that she's a wealth of information, so I just didn't know what potentially would come up in the conversation that could also kind of guide us for potentially this year's questions.
Okay, so we can drop the, bring the questions back or?
Garyana, can we also have a document for, we can draft some questions that we want to email Jody from the sheriff's office. That way we can know if we want to have a conversation before drafting, or it can just kind of align us or answer some of the logistical questions that we have around the surveys before we prepare this year's questions and decide like for who and why we're doing the survey.
Yeah, so did you need help doing outreach to Jody, or you just need me to make space in the Google Drive for you guys to draft questions?
Yeah, just a shared document because I'm not sure if we're able to upload, so that way we can go in and type up some of the logistical questions and then maybe do we actually want to wait a next month to send the email, or maybe I can reach out to Garyana and just ask her to like email you all and see if you all had added your questions, and if you all confirm that you have contributed or we're done, then we can move the email forward.
Okay.
Unless you all feel like we want to add to the document and wait until next month's meeting. No, that would just like put it out a month though, before we would be getting the information to then we could be drafting the custody questions next meeting. Did I see your hand?
Yeah, I was just going to tell you some quick stats from the last sheriff's oversight report. So bookings by gender, and this is bookings, this isn't average daily population. So females are booked in at 25% versus a quarter of the rate of men. So in like October to December, there was 876 females booked and 3,276 males. And with the average daily population, like in West County, 472, you can kind of, I don't know what the average daily population broken down by gender is, but you can kind of figure out from there. So you're looking at females make up about 25% of bookings. So, figuring out stats from there, if you have 25%, less, 75% less female responses, then you're on target with the average daily population, probably.
Thank you, Jill. I really appreciate those statistics. That's kind of helpful to break down.
And we can go through the.
So looking at the
survey.
responses, you're probably still low in the females since you only had 13 versus I think 90 something for men. So you
Right.
are probably still low on receiving responses from the female population. But again, those are bookings, not incarceration. So I'm not sure what the population is in females who are actually incarcerated. That Jody could give you that number.
Thank you.
I don't know the meeting, it was brought up the percentage, like,
Incarceration.
she can look for it.
That would be one of the Jody questions.
What's that, Yolanda?
The bookings versus the incarceration at this time. Because the bookings are different from, being incarcerated. So, was the survey, of course it was based. The booking and the incarceration would sometimes be could be two different numbers, because
sure.
the survey was, yeah, because the survey was done inside, but.
Yeah, and there's alternative to custody. So there's a lot of those bookings who never even go into the incarceral setting. They're in community. And then, of course, there's the variety of different sites, whether it be a behavioral health placement, West County Martinez or the ranch or the East County facility.
Do you think we have a greater response if we did the survey during booking for the women's?
I think that would be hard though.
Then would that be facilitated through like local, like law enforcement agencies, like city police department?
I mean, like
Sheriffs?
Like when you're going through booking, like, you know,
Okay.
when you're being processed and stuff like that, like, or but.
It's on the tablet, right? Is it on the
Yeah, but I
tablet?
think that would be.
Yeah, well, I think it sounds like it's in the housing modules.
Yeah, how it is
on
downloaded,
The
but-
tablet, but if we felt like we would reach like a broader, I think my question would just be like, would that still be like through the sheriffs? Because if they're like cited and released, that might be through like city departments or law enforcement agencies, unless it's an unincorporated area.
Thank you.
So it sounds like, we should start with just kind of like the logistical questions, and I don't know if that's something that we should think about, or maybe bring back to the general body, like if we wanted to facilitate the survey in an earlier stage of becoming incarcerated, whether it be interaction. And I think, it would probably, if we were allowed to do that, it would vary with, city or police department or like law enforcement agency, because I know like Jody and the sheriffs at this time are reading like, okay, the in custody survey, I don't know how that would work. For example, like Pittsburgh Police Department, Richmond Police Department,
Yeah,
Antioch Police
yeah.
Department, that's like outside of the sheriff, so.
I think that'll be a
Or
little
make it possible for
stretch.
women, though? Or no?
It also depends on the condition of the individual.
Yeah, cause you
Right.
can do booking, you
Yeah,
could be
'cause-
drunk,
Yeah.
you could be,
That's
you
true.
know, at least we know in custody, they probably had a date sober up or two, you know.
Oh, yeah, I'm
That's
too new here. I don't know if we're gonna go ahead of ourselves to decide the going year. Maybe we could follow up. Let's maybe just focus on
You never know.
the questions for Jody, and then
Jody.
if
and
we
then
wanna,
go the extra mile.
rethink around the stage of like when we wanna facilitate the survey, maybe. Because I don't know if that's something that we should or shouldn't be thinking about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe we should just focus on what we have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sounds like
Donna.
we're going to a rabbit hole.
What we have.
Throw me a life ring, Jada.
Looking
Hey.
That's what
Um,
it says.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say, Jody is really gonna be your best source to getting you some of the information that you guys want. But I also wanted to just throw out there that there was this one comprehensive survey done with men and women, and then there was another one done with women. And I think the topic was trying to do these yearly, and I guess the question would be, to what end? If we still have all of this data from the last two surveys and yet we haven't done anything with it yet, I think really identifying the why. Is it being gathered for funding purposes to back up asks that CAB has? Is it being gathered to share with the community-based organizations so that they know what the folks coming out of incarceration are really needing? I think if you narrow kind of your why you want this data on a yearly basis, it'll help you figure out when and how is the best place to collect that data. And just a caveat that at booking, there are certain things that we could do at booking as the reentry team that we don't, only because people are entirely overwhelmed with that process. And even though they're given a bunch of information, like you have access to NAAA and school and reentry and all these things, most of them don't even remember it, because the process of coming in here, for the majority of the folks, that time is just so highly anxiety provoking and stress filled that they sometimes don't even remember the basic information of things that are available to them every day. Jill, you got your hand up too?
Yeah, I was just going to respond to the why, and maybe it wasn't clearly shared, but that survey information has been used extensively by CAB to look at not only building the budget, which is what the purpose is every year, is to determine where the needs are. Also in looking at contracts and what's being performed, what's being said is performed and what's actually happening or the people know about in the jail. So it's helpful for communication. And then the other piece of it, which was huge this last year, was the 15 million in excess CAB 109 funds, or AB 109 funds. That information, that survey information fed into that whole process. So it is being used every year, and perhaps that's just not communicated clearly, or whoever's asking doesn't know who to ask, but it is used every year for those purposes.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jana and Joe. I appreciate both of your points in the conversation. While I was listening and just like re-reviewing the data, I see how the survey appears like it was aligned with CAP's priorities for 2024. You know, when I look at each stats and each chart, of course, you know, it brings up all different like things, you know, whether it be around like cultural and like, you know, being able to communicate needing support in this area, or even confidence of identifying having disability, and then just looking at like the gender specific. And of course, the most three critical needs, I'm not surprised, would be like housing and things associated with income, or things that create hardship to access housing or employment, like transportation, income, benefits, you know, everything is connected and coincide. So that, you know, like really didn't surprise me, but, I think the reason why we have questions for Jody would just be logistical, hoping to like increase the responses and reach more individuals. That way, the data can like be most accurate as possible and capture like, you know, like a broader population. I think for me, like surveys and statistics, I'm like, well, always like who just knowing like the most vulnerable or most in need often may not be willing or forthcoming to be honest and transparent in a survey. So just being able to be innovative and think outside the box, hopefully we can like improve, like, or maybe think of how we can capture, even if it's, you know, a handful more responses. And after we kind of answer our questions, or like put away any assumptions of how the surveys are being facilitated, maybe we can think of a lot of the questions around the priorities for 2025. That way we can stay aligned with keeping policy and budget informed for making the recommendations, in addition to the site visits and our ambassador assignments with our entities and county supervisors. I think all of the data and the more informed questions, and like Jana said, why through those surveys, policy and budget will be able to make a more informed decision for the budget proposal to the PPC when the time comes in October, November, basically. So Garyana did agree to upload another document where we can draft our questions to Jody. And then I can email them and just give her the option to attend our program and service the committee should her schedule permit. That way we get into drafting this year's questions, because based off the survey and the data that's available to us and the one-time excess funds that I feel like were dispersed to meet these needs, maybe we can have some follow-up questions. That way, you know, we can see if there's any gaps in addition to the priorities for 2025. Janet, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna put a note in here because I have to run, but I was just gonna say that however they're presented, I think that if there's an introduction to the survey that lets them know that as they take the time to fill out the survey, that their voice is being heard, right? Because I think sometimes people get a survey and they're like, oh, I've been asked these questions 100 times before. But I think if it's presented in a way that says that, you know, the answers to these questions will ultimately affect, you know, you and your transition out, and we really want to know where the gaps are so that we can better help you as a community, I think you'll get more responses, because they do get some surveys in here, and, you know, some of them are just like, it's just another survey. They've been asked me this before. And I did put this out there for the last time the surveys were done. I know that our teachers, our classrooms would be open to people physically coming in and doing like focus group sessions in the classrooms. That way you can personally ask the questions to the people and get their responses that way, which might lead to some discussion information you might not have gotten from a survey on a tablet.
Thank you, Jenna. That's a great suggestion. And I was also kind of thinking that, like, is there a way to like incentivize the surveys, whether it be through pre-release intakes, through schools, through GPS? And then I would thought of like, well, then that would only be like a portion of the population. However, maybe if we were to leverage in custody surveys on the tablets, potentially also like hard copy, if that wasn't already available, and a focus group, then you know, that would support even gather more data. So thank you for that suggestion. Okay.
I did see, was there offered, learning disabilities challenges are very high. That does not mean that they can read the survey and answer the questions, but was that, in place too? If they needed someone, they didn't know how to read, or they were just guessing?
I think when we developed the questions, we were trying to make it like at a low grade level. I mean, the questions would be easily,
Understood.
yeah, and they were,
Some people just, sometimes people in jail too for no reasons don't want to admit that they can't read, so just be like, here, nah, I don't want this
Mhm.
survey, I don't want this.
and there were multiple choice too, I think, so. Most of them.
And I think the reason why I was asking if also like hard copy, because if individuals, I know we have some members that are even like, oh, smartphone. So like if it's a tablet and maybe they steer away from technology, you know, some people do prefer paper and pen. I know me myself, I like to do everything paper and pen and then I type it up later. Hence what I'm doing now. But I think that we have our next steps for the in custody surveys. And it just responds to what you said around like the ADA and then the response around disabilities. I think also just kind of one of our priorities that's coming over back from 24 during the site visits. We can also just, it seems like it was like all hand in hand kind of within custody questions around disabilities, and then also like the key priority for surveying the site visits in 2024 of how providers are serving individuals with disabilities. But just out of respect for time, I don't know if we will be able to get through all of it. However, thank you to staff for providing and generating this report. Shout out to Kimmy, Gariana, and the rest of the team for putting this together for us. I really appreciate it. So we will be adding our questions for Jody and get ready for the email. Gariana, before the next subcommittee meeting, I would just probably email you and ask you if you can please email the rest of the members here and ask them if they haven't, or if they can just confirm that they've already contributed if needed. That way I know if they're ready to like email Jody or not. And will it be okay if I email Jody, or is that something that you all should do? I don't want to add to your plate, but I don't know how that works.
I personally think it's okay. I know in the past
Okay.
I've reached out to Jody to facilitate like this discussion around the in custody surveys, but I think it's okay if you reach out to Jody.
Okay, thank you, Gariana. If it's not, you can let me know later.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am looking at the AB 109 providers challenge number 30 in the agenda packet, number 7 on the agenda. And so this looks like this was from last fiscal year. Client barriers, 35%. challenges include addressing undiagnosed mental health, substance use disorder, and permanent disabilities with limited or fixed incomes. HR training, I know. Population we serve, untreated mental health concerns. I definitely see a trend amongst our providers. Providers, so, okay. And good resources.
Go to one.
No.
12.
12:30.
12:30, 11,
okay.
12:30. Got about 3 minutes before we adjourn. You know, when I read this over, it just really resonates with the data work that we do, and it's just kind of an affirmation. I'm only knowledgeable and can only speak obviously of the Community Success Center. And after reading, some of these quotes from our other partner and provider feedback from the annual reports, just mental health and, housing continues to be a challenge. And I know personally, just with inflation and without inflation, the cost of living in the Bay Area, it can be extremely challenging for members who are on a fixed income or even have barriers to obtaining incomes. I know this is something that I've just been brainstorming, like in and outside of CAB, how do we lift up individuals who may not be ready to seek employment, obtain or retain employment, and how do we lift them up and support them with identifying additional incomes or a income, or just to kind of get them by and support them, keep them positively engaged and kind of not like recidivating, because when you don't have a monthly income or someone to stay, it can be really easy to not only recidivate, but even, want to recidivate if you can, have somewhere to lay your head and bed, if that's the only way. So, it's very disheartening, and I'm not surprised seeing these findings. And with respect of time, maybe we can just review this report that the staff did provide us and maybe have a conversation, add it to the agenda next time. I know the purpose of requesting this data was just to kind of better inform us to know what our providers were dealing with before going out on the site visits. So if you do have time to review it, and if questions come up for you, feel free to add them into the draft or the Word doc that Gariana uploaded for us in the shared drive. Since we are short, but we are at time, we can discuss this at the next subcommittee meeting. And again, if you have questions that come up, in regard to the in-custody survey or the site visit, based off these challenges, please add them in, and I'm hoping that we can review the shared documents during the next subcommittee meeting. Do any of you have anything that you would like to add or any questions before we close out?
I don't.
Just out of respect for time.
I think good.
Our next subcommittee meeting for programs and services is scheduled for Thursday, April 17th, here in this 50 Douglas Sequoia room at 11 a.m. And thank you all for your time. Thank you on Zoom. Thank you so much for Gariana for keeping me aligned and providing this agenda and documents for us. You're a rock star.